I stopped walking when my therapist asked me an intriguing question. She didn't ask about the meaning behind the joke I made at the cafe, but rather why I felt the need to say it at all. And that made me realize something. I was trying to impress others, playing the role of a confident, tough businesswoman who has everything under control. Hey, it's Craig here. I never imagined I'd be the guy worrying about what his girlfriend says. But here I am, sitting at the daily grind, pretending to work while my mind keeps replaying the conversation. It's funny how one simple sentence can completely alter everything. As I walked in that morning, Jane, the barista, called out, "Your usual, Greg, double shot Americano." "Thanks, Jane," I said, already feeling like I'd been coming here forever. "Just long enough to keep you in business," I added, smiling as she winked and began making my order. It was just an ordinary Tuesday. I had my usual spot by the window with my laptop open to some spreadsheets I needed to finish for work. The morning rush was over and I was in my element. Just me, my coffee, and my data. That's what I do, you know? Numbers are straightforward. They don't hide anything or say things they don't mean. Olivia was sitting at her usual table with her marketing friends. I could hear fragments of their conversation, campaign statistics, client meetings, office gossip. Normally, I'd ignore them. But then I heard my name. If Greg and I ever get divorced, I'm taking him to the cleaners. He's rich, and I'd be foolish not to. That was Olivia's voice, clear as day. Her friends burst into laughter, one of them saying, "Girl, you're terrible." "I'm just being practical," Olivia replied, laughing confidently. I kept staring at my screen, my fingers frozen on the keyboard. When I looked up, Olivia briefly met my gaze before quickly looking away, still smiling, still performing. The rest of the day went by in a blur. By evening, I was pacing our apartment, my mind racing through every conversation we'd ever had about money. "Babe, you're wearing a track in the floor," Olivia remarked when she came in, dropping her keys in the bowl by the door. "Rough day?" I stopped pacing. "I heard what you said at the cafe today." "But what are you talking about?" she asked. "About taking me to the cleaners if we get divorced? About me being loaded?" Her face went through a range of expressions, from confusion to recognition to dismissiveness. "Oh my God, Greg, that was just girl talk. You know how we get when we're together. We say crazy things." "Do you say crazy things?" I asked. Because it sounded pretty serious to me. She walked over to try to wrap her arms around me. "You're being ridiculous. You know I love you, not your money." I stepped back. Am I being ridiculous? That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I got up and called my lawyer friend Mark. "Greg," he said groggily, "what's wrong?" "Sorry for calling so late," I said. "I need your advice about prenups." There was a pause. "Give me a minute," he said. I heard rustling, then a door closing. "Okay, talk to me." I explained everything, the cafe, the conversation, my doubts. "Look, Greg," Mark said finally, "I can draw up the paperwork, but are you sure about this? It's going to change things between you two. I need to know." "I need to be sure," I replied. "Come by the office tomorrow. We'll figure this out." The next morning, Olivia was getting ready for work when I brought it up again. "Can we talk about yesterday?" I asked. She was applying mascara in the bathroom mirror. "There's nothing to talk about, Greg. It was a joke." "Then why don't I feel like laughing?" I asked. She put down the mascara and faced me. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it." "I think we need to talk about a prenup," I said. The mascara wand clattered into the sink. "Excuse me? I've been thinking about it." "No," she cut me off. "You've been overthinking it. There's a difference." She grabbed her bag. "I'm late for work. We can talk about your trust issues later." The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with the echo of her words. Trust issues? Maybe she was right. Maybe I was overthinking everything. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had seen something real in that moment at the cafe. Something that had always been there, waiting to be noticed. I picked up my phone and texted Mark. "I'll be there at 10 hours and have the papers ready." Because sometimes the biggest risks in life aren't about money. They're about having the courage to ask the questions you're afraid to know the answers to. And I needed those answers, even if I wasn't going to like them. "It's Olivia," she was saying. "How dare he? Seriously, how dare he? I've spent 5 years building my career in marketing, climbing that corporate ladder one painful step at a time, and now I'm suddenly some gold digger because of one stupid joke?" "You should have seen his face, Rachel," I said, pacing around my friend's living room as if I had personally betrayed him. "Men can be so sensitive about money," Rachel said, pouring more wine. "Remember when Steve thought I was using his credit card too much? This is different, I replied, sinking into her couch and kicking off my heels. Greg's talking about a prenup. A prenup. We're not even engaged. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. I took a long sip of wine, recalling how this whole mess began. One careless comment at the cafe. That's all it took. I was just playing to my audience, you know? Being the bold, brash Olivia they all expect. Have you tried talking to him? Rachel asked. Oh, I've tried, I said. He just sits there with that analyst expression on his face. His face looked like he was processing information instead of actually talking. I mimicked his serious expression, which made Rachel laugh. That morning, he actually said, let's look at the facts without bias. But later, alone in our apartment, it was harder to joke about Greg working late or avoiding me. I wasn't sure which one it was. I found myself walking into his home office, staring at the photos on his desk. There was one of us from last summer at the beach. I was on his back, both of us laughing as he pretended to drop me into the waves. I brought dinner, his voice startled me. I turned to see him standing in the doorway, holding takeout bags from that place I like. Peace offering? I asked. More like a conversation starter, he replied. We sat at the kitchen counter, moving the pad thai around our plates. The silence between us felt thick, unfamiliar. We used to be able to talk about anything. I've worked hard for everything I have, I said finally. My job, my reputation. I know that, Liv, he responded. Do you? I asked. Because it feels like you think I'm just sitting here, planning how to take your money. He set his fork down. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? I pushed. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you don't trust me. After 3 years together, you heard one dumb joke. And suddenly, it didn't sound like a joke anymore. Man, well, it was, I said, my voice cracking a little. God, Greg, do you know how many times my friends have joked about marrying rich? It's just something we say. But why say it at all? I pushed my plate away, frustrated. Sometimes it's easier to be the person people expect you to be. The ambitious marketing exec who doesn't take anything seriously. It's my brand, you know? You don't need a brand with me, Liv. His words hit harder than I expected. Because he was right. I didn't need a brand with him. That's what I'd always loved about us. But now he was talking about a meeting with Mark tomorrow. The prenup, he said quietly. Something inside me broke a little. Fine, have your meeting. Draw up your papers. Protect yourself from the big bad girlfriend who might take all your precious money. No, I get it, he said. You're being practical, right? Analytical. And we'll analyze this, I said, grabbing my keys and purse. I'm staying at Rachel's tonight. I paused at the door. You know what hurts the most? It's not that you want a prenup. It's that you think you need one. That after everything we've been through, you still don't know who I am. Later, curled up in Rachel's guest bed, I checked my phone. No messages from Greg. My finger hovered over our last text exchange from this morning. Just regular talk about dinner plans. How did we get from there to here so quickly? I opened Instagram, mindlessly scrolling through my feed. 3 years of memories flashed by. Anniversaries, vacations, random Tuesday nights when we made dinner together. All those moments when I thought we were building something real. Maybe that's what hurt the most. Not the prenup itself, but what it represented. Because how do you prove you love someone for who they are, not what they have? How do you fight against a suspicion that's already taken root? The thing about trust is, once it's questioned, you can't just brush it off with explanations or jokes. And maybe that's the real issue here. Not his money or my pride, but the fact that one careless moment has made us both wonder if we ever truly knew each other at all. The draft prenup sat on my desk like a ticking time bomb. Mark had done a thorough job. 15 pages of legal language designed to protect both of our interests. I had read it 7 times, analyzing each clause like I would a complex data set. But numbers are easier than this. You look awful, Mark said, dropping into the chair across from me at work. When's the last time you slept? Define sleep, I said, rubbing my eyes and minimizing the spreadsheet I'd been staring at for hours. Olivia had been staying at Rachel's for 3 days. Maybe that's your answer right there, Mark said. What do you mean? I asked, confused. Mark leaned forward. Look, when you called me about the prenup, I thought it was just nerves, cold feet. But this, he said, gesturing at my disheveled appearance, this isn't about money anymore, is it? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Olivia. Can we talk? Real talk, not analyst talk. She wanted to meet. I told Mark, and honestly, I didn't know what to say anymore. Mark stood up, adjusting his tie. Yes, you do. You're just afraid to say it. An hour later, I was sitting at our spot, the little Italian restaurant where we had our first date. Olivia was already there, wearing the blue dress I had bought her for her birthday. My heart did that familiar flip, but then I remembered why we were here. You look terrible, she said as I sat down. Thanks, you look beautiful, I replied. A small smile flickered on her face. Greg, wait, she said before I could speak. Let me go first. Of course, I said. I've been running the numbers, she started. Of course you have, I interrupted, trying to keep the conversation light. But I realized something. This isn't really about the prenup. Then what is it about, she asked, setting down her water glass. Yes, it's about patterns, I said. When I analyze data, I look for patterns that reveal deeper truths. And that day at the cafe, what you said, it fit a pattern I've been ignoring. No, what pattern, she asked. The jokes about my salary, the comments about investment portfolios, I started. She stopped me. Just stop, you're doing it again, turning me into a data point, a problem to solve. Because problems make sense. The words came out louder than I intended. A few heads turned our way, but I lowered my voice. Problems have solutions, but this, us? I don't know how to solve this. Just then the waiter approached. She senses the tension and retreats without saying anything. Do you want to know the truth? I continue. I'm terrified. Not of losing money, I don't care about the money. I'm terrified because I've built this whole future in my mind with someone who might not even be real. Olivia's eyes fill with emotion. How can you say that after everything we've been through? She asks. Because I need to know, I reply, my voice cracking. I need to know that when you look at me, you see Greg, the guy who still can't cook pasta properly and watches bad sci-fi movies. Not Greg the investment portfolio. And you think a prenup will tell you that? She asks. I pull the envelope with the agreement out of my bag. I think how you react to it will. She stares at it for a long time. You know what's funny? She begins. I always admired how analytical you are. How you can take something complicated and break it down into clear, understandable pieces. But you can't do that with love, Greg. You can't spreadsheet your way into trusting someone. I know, I respond, pushing the envelope toward her. But I also know I can't move forward without this. Call it insurance, call it protection, call it whatever you want. But I need to know that we're building something real. And if I don't sign it, I pause, letting the question linger between us. In my head, I hear Mark's voice. Sometimes the hardest part isn't making the decision, it's living with it. Then I'll have my answer, I say quietly. Olivia picks up her purse and stands. I need time, she says. I nod and she pauses by my chair. For what it's worth, I do love you. The real you, even when you're being an analytical idiot. As I watch her leave, something clicks. In all my analysis, in all my pattern searching, I miss the most important variable of all. Sometimes, the biggest risk isn't in trusting someone. It's in not trusting them enough. I've been sitting at my laptop for hours, Googling things like how to deal with prenup requests and does a prenup mean no trust? Rachel thinks I'm crazy. My sister says I should walk away. But none of them see what I see when I look at those legal papers. A man so afraid of losing himself that he's willing to risk losing us. You're not actually considering it, are you? Rachel asks during our lunch break. I move my salad around on my plate. I had a long talk with my therapist yesterday. Since when do you have a therapist? She asks. Since the man I love started treating me like a statistical risk, I reply, trying to smile. But it falls flat. Dr. Chen helped me see something, though. This isn't really about money. Could have fooled me, Rachel says. No, listen, I continue. Remember when I first met Greg? How I said he was different because he saw the real me, not just the glossy marketing exec everyone else sees? Rachel nods, stealing a cucumber from my plate. Well, maybe I stopped letting him see that person. Maybe I got so caught up in playing a role that I forgot who I was with him. Later that evening, I find myself outside our apartment, our home. Through the window, I can see Greg at his desk, probably still working, classic him, drowning his feelings in spreadsheets. We need to talk, I say when he opens the door. He steps back, letting me in. The apartment smells like coffee and takeout. Some things never change. I talk to my lawyer, I begin. Wait, let me finish, he interrupts. I talk to my lawyer, my therapist, my sister, and about 15 websites about prenuptial agreements. Want to know what I learned? He sits on the couch, waiting for my answer. I learned that I'm angry, not about the prenup. Well, yes, about the prenup, but not for the reasons you think. I pace around the living room, the words tumbling out. I'm angry because you heard one stupid comment and let it erase 3 years of us. I'm angry because you think you can quantify love with legal documents. But mostly, I'm angry because part of me understands why you're doing this. You do? He asked. I stopped pacing. My therapist asked me something interesting. She asked why I made that joke at the cafe. Not what I meant by it, but why I felt the need to say it at all. I paused, realizing something, and I realized I was showing off, playing the part of the confident, ruthless businesswoman who has it all figured out. It's what my friends expect. It's what everyone expects. I sink into the armchair across from him. Everyone except you. You've always let me just be me until I didn't. He says quietly, until you didn't. I pull the prenup from my bag. I had my lawyer review it. She said it's fair. Actually, she said it's more than fair. You're being generous. I know that's not the point, I say. Take a deep breath. I'll sign it, Greg. Not because I have to, but because I want to prove something to both of us. His eyes meet mine. What's that? That I choose you, I say. Not your money, not your success. Just you. The analytical idiot who still can't cook pasta right and watches terrible sci-fi movies. A small smile tugs at his lips. They're not that terrible, he says. They really are, I reply. I move to sit beside him on the couch. But here's the deal. If I'm signing this, we're also signing up for couples therapy because we clearly need to work on this trust thing. That's fair, he says, taking my hand. I'm sorry, Liv, for not talking to you first, for letting one moment overshadow everything else. I'm sorry too, and I say, for the joke, for playing a part instead of being real with you. I squeeze his hand. But you know what? Maybe we needed this. Maybe we needed to remember that love isn't about grand gestures or legal documents. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard, even when one of us is being an analytical idiot, especially then. I lean against him, feeling the familiar warmth of his body. Now, order some pizza, I say. We've got a lot of paperwork to go through, and I'm not doing it on an empty stomach. The prenup sits on the coffee table between us. No longer a bomb waiting to explode, but a bridge we're choosing to cross together. Because sometimes, love isn't about what you're willing to risk. It's about what you're willing to protect, even if it means protecting it from yourself.